Welcome back to Student Hub Live, Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences, new curriculum showcase. Well, we're now going to talk about understanding music, and I'm joined by Ben Winters and Bob Samuels. Welcome today. I always love talking to you both about music at the Open University, and what I particularly like is students who maybe don't know that we study or teach music at the Open University. So they always like hearing about how it's all happening here. So Ben is a senior lecturer in music and the module team chair of A234. And you've been at the OU now for quite a number of years, and you research Hollywood films, which I always find really interesting, the music of Hollywood films. And Bob is a senior lecturer in music and one of the authors of A234, so you can meet the course team here. And he chairs the module that the music department run in collaboration with Trinity Laban Conservatoire in London. So great to have you both here. Shall we start by talking about then who this level 2 music module might be for? Ben.
Yeah, thanks, Karen. Well, I mean, the module really is for anyone who wants to have a better understanding of how music works. And by music here, I mean a kind of wide variety of notated traditions of Western music. So classical, pop, jazz, folk, film music. And it's really about equipping students with the knowledge and skills they need to be able to understand real world examples of music. So we're not talking about understanding music theory in the abstract. And I think it's particularly important to note that the module is open to all, whatever their prior experience of music notation. So there's no need to worry if you've never read music before. More than that, though, I guess it's for students who really want to be able to understand the music that means most to them. Each week, they'll have an opportunity to undertake some independent study tasks that allow them to really apply what they've learned to the music they're most interested in. Having said that, it's also for anyone who wants to discover something new. I know in writing the module, we've all discovered new pieces of music. So it's kind of that mixture of the new and the familiar. I should also say that it's not just for students on our BA music. We anticipate that perhaps up to a third of our students will be on the open degree or studying A234 as a standalone module. And another third of our students are on the humanities degree. So I don't think you need to think of yourself as a music student in order to be able to study A234.
No, absolutely. I mean, so many people love and appreciate music. Bob, how does it
Yeah.
relate to the rest of the OU music offering then?
Well, as Ben said, there's a lot of variety in the sort of music you study in this particular module, but it's a part of a whole kind of degree offering where we study music from a lot of different angles. So in this new module, a lot of it is based on how you get actually to physically read music and listen to music and read. But other modules look at music from a different perspective. Our other second level module is about music technology, and that's a lot about how you record music, how you understand what you hear through your ears when you can't read it, and how music changes in the different ways that it's notated and so on. Then at third level, we've got two modules again, one of which looks more with the eyes and one of which looks more with the ears. So they're both all about music. One is called the central questions in the study of music, and that's at the third level, and that's the one which gets you to ask yourself, what does music really mean? What does it mean to me? What does it mean to other people? And so on. And the other one is the one that we run with Trinity Laban Conservatoire in London, which is called the practice of music making. And for that year, you study yourself practicing music, whatever your music practice is. Can be any genre, can be any style of music, can be any number of people you make it with, but you study yourself studying music.
Wow, that sounds fantastic. So how is the module actually studied then, this particular module? What is in it? What does it look like? How do students do it? Bob?
Okay, well, first thing to say is it's pretty much all online materials. It's a classic OU modern module studied with a virtual learning environment, a VLE, via the Open University service. So nearly everything that you study is online. Not quite everything, though. There's some of the larger music examples we have to give you in a physical book of music as well. So you get a couple of scores those booklets to study as well. Now, because it's online, we've got a lot of interactive music activities where you listen to something, you look at something on the screen, then you answer a question on it, or you type in, it's an interactive activity of some other sort. And you also get to have a hands-on experience of writing music down. Part of the music materials is some professional music notation software. That's a piece of software that allows you to write music, and you're introduced in how to use that in the course of the module. It's a relatively new sort of cutting edge, top of the range package called Dorico, produced by a British company, and we've got a very good relationship with the company themselves. And I think we've got a screenshot of what it actually looks like on screen. If you have a piece of music in the middle of the screen, there you can see it now, and various tools around the edge allow you to add notes, to add indications, to move things around, and indeed to play it back and listen to it as well. Some of the exercises you do, nothing as complicated as what you see on screen. That's something that I made, which I'll tell you about in a minute. But some of the exercises are required to write down music yourself, and you play it back to yourself, and then you compare that with the answer that we give you in the module materials. So you get that piece of software for free for the duration as part of the materials. And instead of buying books, we ask you to buy an electronic keyboard that you plug into your computer, which works with that notation software and helps you produce the music you want to produce.
Wow, that sounds super. What sort of music then, Ben, do students study on the module?
Yeah, it's one of the things that we've wanted to do throughout writing the module is to try and make the music that students study as varied as possible. So it's not just Western classical music. We do ask students to study Western classical music, but it's ranges across the period. So they go back to looking at some plain chant, 12th century by Hildegard of Bingen, pieces by the 14th century composer Machaut, but then through works by Rameau, Monteverdi, Bach, and Handel. And then later on, sort of piano sonatas, operas, and symphonies by figures like Mozart and Beethoven. But they also then look at some more recent pieces of classical music, music in the 20th century by Scott Joplin, Debussy, Mahler, and Arvo Pärt. But in addition to that, they also will learn about a large number of songs by artists like Bob Dylan, Nana Cherry, Kate Bush, the Beatles, the Beach Boys, and so on. There's some Metallica and some more recent songs by Robin and Carly Rae Jepsen. And then there are extracts from musicals. There's some jazz and swing, some Duke Ellington, and also some examples of Hollywood film music, including themes from the Star Wars and Indiana Jones films. And even beyond that, there are well-known songs like Happy Birthday or Greensleeves, which sort of sit alongside Scottish and Welsh folk music and North American fiddle tunes. So it's an incredibly wide variety of different types of notated music. Just to give you a kind of example, the first thing students listen to is a song by the Ronettes, Be My Baby. And then they follow that up with the American folk song, The Midnight Special. And then there's some Pakistani devotional music at the beginning of Unit 2. And I think the first pieces of classical music they hear are some waltzes by Schubert and Chopin towards the end of Unit 2. So it's very much a kind of mixture of and the new. And I mentioned earlier on that when we were writing this module, we've all discovered new pieces of music. I think, Bob, in particular, you found something that was very much new to you.
Yeah.
Well, it's nice to be able to. We can virtually guarantee that everybody will find music that they've never heard before if they study this music, this module. Certainly, we did, and The example is one of the things I'm fascinated by and write a lot about, both in my research and also in my teaching, is symphonies, especially symphonies written in the 18th century. In the 18th century, they're sometimes called symphonies, sometimes called overtures. And there was a piece I particularly wanted to use for teaching in this module, partly because I thought nobody would know it, and that's a piece written by a member of royalty in the sort of middle of the 18th century, a Princess Royal of Saxony called Maria Antonia Walpurgis. And because this is quite it's not a very well-known piece, to say the least. In order to give students a score to read, I had to write it out myself. So I went into the Bodleian Library in Oxford. I found the edition printed in 1773, which they have there, and I had to edit it myself. It was full of mistakes, actually, so I had to correct those as well as I went along. And you could see the result on the Dorico screen that we showed you in the screenshot a little while ago, and that's the score which I produced for our students to study, and you get it printed up in one of your scores booklets. So a piece by royalty of the 18th century, which almost guaranteed nobody will have heard that before, certainly.
That sounds fantastic. So there's certainly a lot there for everyone. Bob, I'm really worried about our time because I know you've got some audios and I'm not sure we're going to have time to play them all, because we're talking so much about the scope of music within the module. But can you talk us through the first one that you wanted to look at? Because we've got a quiz here for students. So we've got some widgets here,
Yep.
with the pulse audio meter, and the image that best matches the audio. So can you talk us through that and then we can play that file?
Yeah, absolutely. You'll be able to see on the screen in a minute. This is multiple choice. These are 3 pictures of dots going across your screen, and this is to teach people about rhythm. Except it's not rhythm, because before you get to rhythm, you have to get to meter. Before you get to meter, you have to understand pulse. Pulse is a regular beat. So that's 1 dot going across the screen, and then meter is when you add other layers of dots to it. Now I'm going to play you this piece of music I created with a synthesizer. You tell me, does it match A or B or C? Which pattern best matches the pulse and meter that you hear in this piece of music? Okay. Okay, well, that's a riff. It could be underneath a piece of dance music. Is it A, is it B, or is it C?
So we'll just give our people a few seconds because of the time lay over the internet. I mean, these are important concepts, I guess. These, you're sort of mentioning words, melody, harmony, rhythm, meter, form, texture, etc. These are some of the key concepts that the students are taught about in the module, and this is one example, I guess, of how we're actually teaching such a thing. So, HJ, let me know when you've got some widget results in through from people at home.
Yeah, it's worth saying that one of the things this module is meant to do is break down what all the lots and lots of different parameters that make up a piece of music into their basic units, so you understand things from the bottom up. So over time you develop a really in-depth understanding of how music works. What really makes it function as a piece of art.
Brilliant. HJ, what have people said at home?
So none of us thought A, 63% of us thought B, and 38% of us thought C.
Right. So, Ben, what's the right answer?
I can't actually see the question. So I can't.
Oh, that's all right. Maybe I'll ask Bob then. What's the right answer?
There we
A,
go.
B, or
So it
C?
is
We
C.
had most people saying B.
Yeah. Well, this proves that most people watching this need to study our module, because the correct answer is C. It was in groups of 3, and then the 3 divided into 2 on a higher level. It was. B is actually closer than A, so but you need to be listening a bit more closely and to get the answer right.
Brilliant. Excellent. Now, I'm not sure if we've got time for the other recording of the fiddle tune. No, we don't, I'm afraid. Sorry. So we just need to end then with a brief note about how the module is assessed, because, I mean, well, how do you deal with the assessment on a module such as creative as music?
Yeah.
Ben?
So the assessment consists of a couple of ICMAs and then 4 TMAs, each of which is divided into sort of 2 parts, where there's a written component, but also a practical component, notation component using the Dorico music software. But I think the most interesting part is how that then prepares for the EMA. With the EMA, we're providing 3 options for students to have a go at, each of which relates to one of the previous TMAs. The first option allows students to engage with a song. The second option allows them to engage with a piece of Western classical music. And the third allows them to harmonize a melody using the notation software. And our intention is that students will likely pick the option that they're best suited for and that they have the best chance of doing well at, based on their previous performance in a TMA. So the idea is that the TMAs provide them with a kind of dry run, really, for the EMA, which is the largest chunk of assessment. So we're really hoping that this gives lots of students a really good chance of doing really well at the module.
Brilliant. Well, that's absolutely wonderful. Ben and Bob, thank you so much. HJ, do we have any burning questions?
We don't have any burning questions, but a lot of us have really enjoyed this introduction to the module. A lot of us have done music in the past, and lockdown has given us a chance to get back into it and get playing our instruments, which has been fantastic. And just think we've been having a great discussion about all the different types of music we listen to as well. So some of us find it quite mad that some people just like absolutely everything, or trying to think about what actually about music makes us like it. So we've had some great discussions on this module, and as always, if there's anything you think of later for our guests, they'd love to hear it. So just email us or put it in the chat.
That's wonderful. Thank you both. And thank you, Ben and Bob. We shall see you, no doubt, at another Student Hub Live session soon, but thank you so much for filling us in on that. Right, we're going to have a short break now, and we're going to look at the BA Honours in Music and studying the MA in Music as well. So a couple of videos to fill you in a little bit further, and then we'll be back for our next session very soon. See you then.